Cannibalism is the act or practice of humans eating the flesh or internal organs of other human beings. It is something that has been going on for hundreds of years and still very much exists today. So join us as we count 10 gruesome cases of cannibalism. Number 10. Armin Meiwes. If you look on Craigslist today, you'll see some very strange and unusual people asking for strange and unusual things, but they fade in comparison to what Armin Meiwes was advertising. In 2001, he posted an advertisement on an internet site which contained the following sentence: looking for a well-built 18 to 30-year-old to be slaughtered and then consumed. Oh well, it's not like anybody would reply to such madness, right? Wrong. Meiwes received a serious response from a willing participant. The two men met on Christmas Day, and Meiwes recorded the entirety of him killing and eating the man. Meiwes was arrested and is currently serving a life sentence in a German prison. Number 9. Jeffrey Dahmer. Dahmer was a very troubled individual. He would befriend young men and lure them to his apartment where he would kill and dismember them after sedating them. Then he would eat the remains. He would go on to a total of 15 murders before being convicted and sentenced to life numerous times. On November 28, 1994, Dahmer was beaten to death at the Columbia Correctional Institution in Milwaukee. Number 8. Alfred Packer. On February 9, 1874, Alfred Packer, an American gold prospector, left with 5 others for an expedition in the Colorado mountains. When Packer returned from the mountains 2 months later, he returned alone. This being rather suspicious, he was questioned about where the other men that had been with him were. Packer said that he had to kill them in self-defense and was forced to eat their corpses in order to survive in the mountains. They didn't believe him, and after he signed a confession, he was given a 40-year sentence, the longest communal sentence at the time. He was eventually given a parole since there remained some doubt about his innocence. Number 7. Albert Fish. Fish was all the words one shouldn't be described with. Serial killer, cannibal, pedophile, sadistic, delusional, and probably many more. Fish kidnapped, murdered, and consumed a 10-year-old girl from Manhattan. After 6 years had passed and the family may have started moving on, Fish taunted them by sending a letter graphically detailing the crime. The police were able to trace the letter back to him and he was arrested and convicted. Fish was executed on January 16, 1936. Number 6. Marc Sappington. 25-year-old Marc Sappington was convicted of multiple criminal counts including first-degree murder of 3 people and kidnapping and assault. The youngest victim of Sappington, 16-year-old Alton Brown Jr., suffered the worst fate of all. According to Sappington, voices in his head advised him to consume flesh and blood or he would die. For this reason, he dismembered and ate a portion of Brown's flesh and froze other parts of the boy's remains for later. Sappington is currently serving 3 life sentences for the first-degree murder charges, as well as another 6.5 years for the kidnapping charge and 2.5 years for the assault. Number 5. Alexander Kinyua. Kinyua's father, Dr. Anthony Kinyua, took in a Ghanaian immigrant called Kujo Bonsafo Aye Cody while he was working on finishing his PhD. They'd been living together for around 6 weeks when Aye Cody disappeared while he was out running. A couple of days later, Kinyua's brother discovered 2 tins containing a human head and hands in the family's basement. Alexander denied that the remains were human at first. When his brother led his father to the basement to look at the findings, the tins were gone. Police were called to the scene. Kinyua then admitted to using a knife to kill Aye Cody and then cutting his body into pieces and consuming his heart and parts of his brain. Other remains of the man were located in a trash bin. He was found not guilty due to mental illness and is now in a mental institution. Number 4. Revolutionary United Front. The RUF was a rebel army based in Sierra Leone in Western Africa, and by the late 90s they'd been involved in a long and bloody campaign to overthrow the government. The members of this group committed a number of atrocities, including conscripting children to become soldiers, amputating people's limbs, and apparently even cannibalizing their enemies. Their motivation for this was to gain strength from eating human flesh and, of course, to intimidate their enemies, which I would imagine worked quite well. In 2001, British and Indian special forces were sent in, and after a number of crushing defeats for the United Front, the revolution was swiftly ended. Number 3. Andrei Chikatilo. Chikatilo was possibly as despicable as a human being can get. A serial killer, rapist, and cannibal, Chikatilo confessed to 56 murders and mutilations by befriending his victims, then killing them and eating them. He admitted that he did this because it gave him sexual pleasure. He was finally arrested and convicted in 1992 and was given the death sentence for his crimes. He was executed in Rostov on February 14th, 1994. Number 2. Otty Sanchez. Otty Sanchez takes the cannibalism concept and raises it one step higher. In 2009, she stabbed, decapitated, and ate portions of her 3-week-old son. When her sister Priscilla Garcia made the gruesome discovery in the early hours of the morning, she didn't just find a dead baby, but also Sanchez, who had stabbed herself in the heart and stomach in a failed suicide attempt. Sanchez later told the police that it was the devil who made her do these horrible things, including eating bits of the baby's brain. Following examinations by 3 different doctors, Sanchez was found not guilty by reason of insanity, and she was placed into a mental institution where she still resides today. Number 1. Gregory Hale. Gregory Hale did not have the best reputation in his neighborhood. People called him sick and a devil worshipper. Hale met 36-year-old Lisa Marie Hyder at a liquor store and took her back to his parents' home where they had sex. After this, Hale killed Hyder and disemboweled the body. Hyder's head and hands were placed into a plastic bucket and other parts of her were placed into another bucket. Police were notified after being informed by an anonymous person that Hale had tried to get help disposing of the body. He was later arrested and sentenced to life imprisonment in January 2015.